All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I have my friend Denise here, and we are practically neighbors now. So I'm excited to share what she does with everybody. So you'll see her title as the process queen. So she does and wears several hats. But today we're going to talk a little bit about her payment processing slash merchant provider that she does that hat. So I'm excited to share that with everybody. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to throw a comment down below and Denise or I will get back to you. But thanks so much for joining us today. She is definitely a guru in her own right. And one thing that she constantly reminds me of is be careful of scope creep. So there you go. Without further ado, I'll hand the floor off to Denise. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jenna, for having me. I think, what you just said in terms of having a lot of hats. We have a couple of companies. So the one that we're talking about today is certainly focused in merchant processing and payments and how you really get revenue into your business, not only in a fast way so that you have cash flow, but also in a safe way, right? We're in the age of hacking. We're in the age of breaches. We are in the age of these things where we want business owners to feel comfortable knowing that that money is moving between whomever paid them and their bank seamlessly behind the scenes so that they don't have to worry that they're going to have their money stopped. It's going to be frozen. They don't know when they're going to get it. They're going to pay random fees here and there. We want to kind of begin to centralize that so that they have a place where they can see it all, but also really then bring in sort of the height of security around that. So I know from my side, even as a business owner, I don't want to have to tell someone about some kind of a breach in my side. So I think the security is what helps me sleep at night a little bit more soundly.
Love that. And how'd you get started in this?
And this was a COVID venture for me. I was watching, and at the time, it was another big box transactor that started to freeze payments. And a couple of my clients had really struggled with this. I had one particular client who had over 150,000 frozen, and that was like their entire sort of like business bank, if you will. But
Wow.
because they were using a transactor and they sort of kept mounting the balance up, and it wasn't that they didn't have access to it before, it was just all of a sudden they were in violation. And very similar to if anyone's ever been put in Google jail or something like that, they send you a manual and it's on you to figure out what it is you've violated in those privacy or in whatever rules and regulations that transactor has. And it's almost impossible to figure out on your own of like, what on earth did I do? Why are you holding my money? And so during that time, we realized that this was a really actually a bigger problem than we had really seen come into our sphere before. And having so many business banking relationships around the world and connections to how to process in a safe way with PCI compliance, because I've always sat more in the CFO seat, it just felt like a natural transition for us to open a wing of our company that really could support our clients in safely transacting any clients, that really need other language support. We have, several languages that we can translate into. And so it was just more of a problem that we didn't know was a problem until we knew it. And then this was born. And it started to kind of take its own sphere and grow its own legs. So now it's its own company. It was really just supposed to be a service line that we were helping our clients with, but it happened to be something that the market was also struggling with of just not really understanding how payments work and then how when you charge a certain amount that translates to your bank is a different amount.
I love that. That's kind of the same, transition that I had going from like agency to now I'm kind of doing software side, but mingling it with the agency services. So I love that. Pretty much similar situation here. And tell us a little bit about because you were born in Ireland, right?
Scotland, but both they're
Scotland.
close.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're close, and I'm wearing green, so I'll take it. As long as you don't say English, I'm just kidding. I spent my entire life in Scotland. I came here to play college soccer back in 2008 now. So I've been here like 16, 17 years, but I didn't imagine I'd stay here forever, and nor did I even envision coming to the States. But when the opportunity kind of just rolled into itself, I'd done a small stint at home between undergrad and grad school, but realized that I really fit better with the American culture, maybe than the Scottish culture. The fast pace of things and everything closes at 5 o'clock and things, it was very different to, I had culture shock on the way here and then I had culture shock going back. And it was
Oh,
such a
wow.
strange dynamic of I thought, this is my home. I'm just going to go back and it'll be normal. But I'd been here for 4 or 5 years and gotten what I call sort of like my adult formation because I started college at 16. I had just done it faster. And so like when I came out and I graduated, I wasn't 21 yet. So it felt really like, whoa, okay, my sort of formative adult years were very much rooted in American structures and cultures, but I went home to Scotland and I was like, whoa, this is not for me. I think I need to go back. And so I came back to graduate school and then just kind of continued on into sort of accounting to CFO to more COO roles in the latter part of my, say, corporate career, if you will, before I really went out to start doing it on my own and stop lining the pockets of other people and really put that money back into the hands of the small business owner.
Love that. Well, I'm excited to hear more from you today, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you this year.
Yeah, for sure. Likewise, and now that we're neighbors, I'm hoping we might even see each other out here,
Yeah.
down the road. But I'm going to just share a PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through it, but it does hit a lot of the top points and what we do, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Here we go. So really, we can custom create your payment processing structure for most anybody out there. We really want to look at what you need as well as what you want a payment processing system to do versus just giving you an out of the box solution, right? Out of the box solutions are great for when you're first getting started and you don't really know all the things that you need, right? You've not ironed everything out. But as you start to increase in volume and you see how big those processing fees can get, as well as not really knowing where things are transacting across the board of when will I get that? Is it a 2 day or a 3 day, or is it what kind of structure is it? Is where we sort of begin to create those structures for you. So we don't want to push our ideas onto customers. We simply want to make what they want. I want to listen to you, hear what you want, and then we begin to create that solution with you so that it works for you rather than working alongside you or you're not getting everything you need out of it, whether that be anything from support on the system itself to if something breaks down, right? You know, one example we had last week is one of our merchants called us and said, my card reader's not working. Now, rather than them have to go out and try and find the card reader, get the right model and things, we just do all that for you, right? We can just go in, help you get it through your dashboard. You can see that it's on the way, it's being shipped, you know, those kind of things to help speed up that process, right? Because when you're working and doing your thing to make money, having to stop because you don't have a piece of equipment or something goes down is something that we can then troubleshoot with you or work on in the background to get you online. Depending on the system you have, sometimes we can even take you offline so it doesn't affect any of your daily business, and we can then help batch that at the end of the day. So there's lots of those things that then make it where we're a bit different from, say, those out of the box style solutions that you would just say, okay, I've bought this, I've set up a piece of hardware, I'm setting it up and I'm putting all those inventory things in. Those are certainly pieces that we can support on as well for clients that are sometimes afraid to switch because they don't know how to get it out of one system into another. We can then help build that into a custom engagement where they might need some extra support.
Yeah. Love that.
This is one of my favorite slides. So even though it's not exactly about payment processing, I think it's just important for every business to know of, like, we explain this like the plane of business, right? Of your nose of your plane is where that knows where you're going, right? We know where you're going and that's what leads that. But all the way in the back, what we're talking about today is this fuel tank, right? Your cash flow and your resources. Have you got the fuel to really fly and take off and pay your bills and those things? And cash affects that. What we like to think of from the CFO side is, number one, always budget on your worst day because you never know when that's going to happen. And number two is when you don't have cash, you become sort of stagnated in what you can achieve because you can't
Hmm.
for the things that you need, or you can't expand because you don't have the cash flow or the resources on hand. So while that's not exactly about payment processing, I always like to think of your payment processing as really like your fuel tank. Because without it and without that money pushing through, you're not able to then execute on the front end or deliver to your customers. And one of the things that I'm big on is client delivery, like never compromise your deliverable. Other things on the back end can be compromised in terms of what you do and don't do or do later, but the customer should always feel that their engagement is priority. And so really what we do is sort of that pre-flight check, right? How do you work with us to do something like this? We're going to go through that pre-flight check, which is your application, because we want to see what you want. Then we're going to look at guiding you through. Once we've chosen the systems, we help you set it up. We help you get taken off. Now, we're not going to take your system you're in now down until you're happy with this one. So we're going to run it at 2 points, right? So that you can see, if I was transacting this exact transaction, how does it work on what I'm doing now? And how does it work on what I'm about to do? And then that sort of reaches you to your destination success. You know, you're off and running to the processor once we've tested it and gone through any changes that need made. Then you're off to the races and you're processing how you want to process. And so we're just connecting people and systems. That's really all we're doing, right? Similar to you on the automation side, right? You want to make it efficient, effective, etc. We're doing the same thing, but more of like a match process. What system makes sense for you? So we have access to thousands of systems across the board, but we're working with you to see which one fits your needs and wants most appropriately. Here's some crazy payment processing statistics that we're seeing in today's world, right? 97% of businesses feel that they're paying too much. So if that's you, let's talk about it, right? Let's see, the longer you've been processing, the more we can negotiate on your behalf. That's what people don't see, right? We look and negotiate these things on the back end, whereas an out the box processor is like, this is your rate. Now, if you've got higher volume or you have been processing for long periods of time, year over year, I go back and negotiate that. I'm going to the banks and talking to them on your behalf to say, hey, this client's increased a lot. How can we pull that down? So it's not just where you start, it's about where you're going as well. How low can we get that? And that happens over time. And so when we're looking at the market, 80% of consumers prefer the card payments over cash. And so there's around 3 trillion credit cards in circulation today. So most people in your business are going to be using a card more than likely, right? And so
Mhm.
how do you manage that as a business owner to make sure that this gets built into either your pricing or you can see what it's costing you to run that system? And then we can help, whether that's pull it down or whatever that might be. Now, we don't ask you to trust us right off the bat, right? We're not saying you have to go with us or everyone has sort of features and benefits that they are better than someone else at or etc.
Mhm.
What we're saying is, why not let us do a cost savings analysis, right? That's no risk, it's no obligation, it's free. So
Exactly.
if you're just curious about it and you're like, I'm not sure that a switch is right for me, then do the cost savings analysis. If the juice is worth the squeeze, then do it. Now, you might have been, if you went with, say, Honeybook, when they first opened, they had this almost virtually nothing rate that's locked in. Nobody can beat that in today's world. So, unless you're struggling with the features of Honeybook, yes, is there a better solution out there for you? More than likely. But if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, that's not my job either. I'm going to tell you that,
Mhm.
right? If you're only going to be saving a couple of dollars a month and you're happy with your current system, there is no need to switch. But at least you know we're here and we can always do that cost savings analysis anytime you feel your fees increase to see is that point in time right? Because we're also negotiating rates as well. So just because it's not the right point today doesn't mean it's not the right time ever. These things change and move over time. So there's a couple of different methods, and this is a lot of how rates are determined. This is where people start to go blank face, right? Of like, what are you talking about? And so
Yeah.
really how we try to break that down for people is thinking about where is the card itself. And that is sort of how an underwriter is looking at how big of a risk you are and how many payments might potentially bounce or things like that. Now, when you're in person and you give my card to me, if I swipe it and it declines, I'm asking you for another card. That doesn't always happen in a digital environment, right? You might have abandoned
Mhm.
carts, you might have refunds, those kind of things. And so we try and look at all of the things that you're doing, and then it's really on the risk assessment there from the underwriting perspective on how low we can get those fees. So higher risk, you know, sort of higher fee, so to speak. And that's where people don't really get that information from some of those big box transactors. They just classify them as high risk based on one form. They don't ask any questions. They don't go back and really say, well, what are you doing here? Are you really high risk? Probably not, right? So let's not put you into that category. Whereas you might just be slapped with, say, a 4% rate from a transactor, and that just is what it is. Or it can be variable, and then you never know where you're at. So we split it in that way. What do we really offer you with Value Payment Solutions? So we don't have those hidden fees, right? What your rate is what your rate is. And then you can check it from your dashboard. We have a dashboard that any merchant can log into and sort of see their MasterCard, Visa, Discover, Amex. If they're not passing the fee off to the consumer 100%, how did all of that come into theirs and how did that then result in fee X being charged, right? We don't have contracts or cancellation fees. So if you're like, I'm not happy with this and we can't help you get into a system that's not where you want to be, you're not attached to me. I never want someone to feel beholden to what we have because I've been beholden to things myself and I don't like it. So we don't have that contract or cancellation. And we really don't have high pressure tactic. I'm not going to be pinging you every 5 minutes once you sign up to say, Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Right? I'm going to just be there to say, when the time is right for you, then obviously we're right there by your side. Now, if you ask me to hold you accountable, can I do that? Absolutely. But I'm not coming in high pressure because I want people to be happy with their systems and saving money. I don't want to put someone in a worse position than they feel like they're in now. So for every 10 applications we get, we usually turn 8 of them into clients, because about 8 out of 10 or 80% of businesses that we encounter, we can actually save them a chunk of money on their fees. Like I said, there's that 20%, and it's probably a little less than 20%, but there are those people that maybe have lock-in rates or special rates that there's no way we can beat because that company's initial rollout. We can utilize cash discount, which means we can alleviate. Now, the easiest way to describe passing the fees off to the consumer, there's always this question of, is that legal? Can I do that? Now, gas stations have been doing it their entire lives, right? They've been doing it to us forever. And so if you drive by a gas station and you see a cash price and a credit price, that's all they've been doing. The Safe Banking Act just allowed all businesses to do it, as we've seen an uptick in credit card transactions and people using digital wallets, etc. Safe Banking then allowed all businesses that go through this process of getting their account really into PCI compliance and underwritten as a business to be able to do this. This is why transactors can't really do this in most cases unless they put you through an underwriting segment that goes into a whole different sphere. And we're seeing some of that with big box transactors now. It didn't used to be a thing, but now they're trying to get more competitive. You are seeing that they might offer you these things, but even then, remember, they're always a transactor, not an actual merchant processor, right? And the difference between those two are the safety and security, the cost, and then the way that your money moves on the back end. With a transactor, they have the right to sort of hold your money, or they can play by their rules, so to speak. So if they feel you're in violation of one of their 9,486 laws, they hold them. And that's a lot of things that you're like, I don't even know what all of those are. Believe me, nobody knows every single one of them. But the way that transaction apps, similar to certain banks, make money is by holding your money, putting it in the market, growing it, and then they'll give it back to you, right? So not only have they made money by charging you a fee, they've made money by holding your money. So the longer they can hold it, the more profitable their side of the account becomes. And so that's where sometimes you'll see some of these things of like, why is my money not moving yet? Whereas once you've gone through this process, there is no vehicle to hold that. That's not anybody's money to hold. It's not mine to hold. It's not the systems to hold. Is going to your bank. In some cases, we can even do next day fund. We can go through where you want the money in your bank next day. Let's evaluate that to see if we can make it happen. And like I said, we do PCI compliance testing once a year so that that keeps you in compliance with everything in merchant processing as well. And so there's sort of the easy steps. We just really fill out the application, we talk through it, then we set up your new terminal, and then you start processing. It's not more complex than that. We just want the conversation with you to make sure you're in the system that you want to be in versus, the system that you might not want to be in. You get the solution you want. So it's pretty easy, right? We're doing the leg lift for you. You're just filling out the information side of things, and then we go and present you with all the possibilities and potentials that you have and the rates that you can pull in. And so these are just sort of the biggest buckets that you get put into, which again, a lot of people are like, whoa, what are all these things? And so really just for a quick overview, we look at, these are the kind of things we evaluate on the back end to say, when we have all of your pieces of information in that puzzle, what system and what pricing rate makes the best and most sense for you based on what you're trying to accomplish. And so there's various ways we can do that, and I'm not going to get into it because it's confusing and sort of like, whoa, I don't want to know every mechanic that you do, but we do have various ways that we look at it. And that's what this slide is designed for. We're not sort of like a one tunnel train. We're going through to see like, what are all of those avenues that are possible for you. Our primary partners are global payments around the world, so they help us underwrite our accounts to make sure we're safe. So if anyone ever needs to know who we are working with on the backside, we're always happy to look at that as well. So I think for right now, that's really like the biggest things I would cover, unless there's anything that you feel that we've not covered today in terms of what the audience might want to know, some FAQs. But really, that's the process, the structure, and what we do in a nutshell to help people save money. I'm a CFO at heart, so it hurts my heart when I see people paying too much. And that was really the birth of Valley Payment Solutions, was that my CFO heart couldn't really take any more of my clients losing money or having their money held, because obviously that impacts their whole business. And what people say is for any business that transacts, hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, every hour is costing you upwards of 10,000. And that's just too much for me to watch someone lose in a day. So I decided to try and begin to put something together that might make that less of a headache.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how similar like our stories are in that aspect. So that's super fun. Well, if anybody wants to reach out, we do have a link that we'll share at the bottom, and we're excited to chat with you all. Talk to you later.